Excellent. Well, thank you for being here, Professor Hillier. This is part of a series that the Data and Analytics Club does called Elective Perspectives, where we just sort of talk to each professor who is teaching like a data or quantitative focus class about their elective in the upcoming quarter, just to help students kind of make informed decisions about which electives they want to take. So yes, I'm joined by Professor Mark Hillier. Our second year colleagues will of course remember your spreadsheet modeling class from our core curriculum last year, and you will be a new face to first year students, but you are teaching modeling with spreadsheets. I think that's QMath 551 as an elective in the upcoming quarter. So we wanted to ask you a few questions about that. Just to start with, if you don't mind, would you just give us, a quick summary of the class, however you conceive of it, what you think the top level information is, what the goals of the class are, that sort of thing?
Absolutely. So, sure. So QMath 551, modeling with spreadsheets, it basically builds on the core class that the second years had last spring. You'll see a lot of the same concepts like linear programming and simulation, but we'll be able to dig much deeper. It's a full 4-credit class. We'll get into much more sophisticated models with linear programming. In addition to just sort of some of those same topics, we'll develop some new techniques that allow us to build more sophisticated models as well. Things like what happens if your decision model that you're dealing with has more than one objective? There's 2 or 3 or 4 things that you're trying to maximize or minimize, or you have several goals that you're trying to achieve. We'll see some techniques to handle that sort of thing. What if your model's nonlinear? We'll learn a lot more tricks with binary variables. You saw a little bit of that in the core class. We'll do a lot more. There's a lot more you can do. The evolutionary solver is another algorithm that's available within the solver that allows us to solve nonlinear discontinuous models. So like if you have a model with if statements that the regular solver couldn't solve, the evolutionary solver sometimes can. We'll learn more about that. A network modeling approach is a very visual way of formulating a problem. You really just draw out the model with nodes and arcs. Lots of kinds of problems sort of fit that approach really well, and then you can turn that into an LP that we can solve. And then we'll do more with simulation as well. And one of the most exciting things we do in there, I think, is the OptQuest tool, which is kind of like Solver on top of Crystal Ball. Allows you to make decisions within a simulation model that's also accounting for randomness in the problem. So again, a lot of the same kinds of things that you saw in the core class, but able to dig much deeper. And then I try to really bring in applications from all the different areas of business. So I try to bring in lots of finance applications. We look at some cash flow optimization problems, portfolio optimization problems, project selection problems, that sort of thing. Operations, including project management, supply chain management, that sort of thing, as well as some marketing applications. So my goal is sort of whatever your area of interest might be. I think there are applications of decision modeling that are relevant to that. And I'd like to teach you guys how to use decision modeling in whatever area you're interested in. So that's the basic idea.
Excellent, thank you. That touches on some other questions I have that I'd like to come back to in a little bit. But first of all, can I just ask, like, how is the course structured? Are there cases, homework assignments, group work, exams, that sort of thing?
Okay. So in many ways, it's similar to the core class. There will be problem sets. I think there's 5 or 6 of them, so not quite weekly, but close, done in the same way with individual and team submissions. There are a few cases, but it's mostly not cases. It's mostly working through examples and techniques in class, and then problem sets to work on them. I think the way I did it this last year, since we were not in person, was with a fair amount of stuff that was on video, and then kind of sort of the flipped classroom approach. I think I'm going to keep that up even though we will be in person, and do some sort of videos ahead. 2 exams, they'll both be take-home exams, and then there'll be a project at the end of the class. So the project will be it's actually one of 2 things. You can either do a case study of basically showing to the class what some business did to utilize decision modeling, or what most people do is come up with a problem that they want to solve on their own. These are done in groups as well, so a group of 4 to 5 people. And the projects can be literally anything that involves something that we did in class. And sometimes the students have fun with this and do honeymoon, as well as some more business related things as well. I think it's a fun way to wrap up the class, because you see at the end just lots of really interesting and fun applications of the kinds of things that we did all quarter. So that's the basic structure.
Excellent. And yeah, I'm curious about, we always ask professors sort of whether there is knowledge that students should be coming to the course with. Yours is a little bit different because we did have that core course beforehand. But I guess I would ask, for students who had difficulty with that course, do you think this course is going to be like a much heavier lift for them? Like personally, I really enjoy your core course, but at the beginning I found, it's kind of a new way of thinking to wrap your brain around, and like it was a steep learning curve for me, and I got there and liked it a lot. But I'm curious what you think about kind of the transition from that to this fuller elective.
Right. I think that's the nature of this class, is that there's a sort of that learning curve in the beginning of you've got to wrap your head around sort of the idea of modeling and how to implement it. And as apparently was the case with you, I think most people by the end of the quarter are sort of really getting it in the core class. Certainly the elective is sort of a step beyond what we did in the core class, but I really sort of, I think, lead you slowly through those extra steps. So I'm not expecting any more knowledge than what was covered in the core class. There'll be a little bit of review of some of the concepts where necessary, of some of the things that we did in the core, but I really, again, try to sort of lead you along step by step. And it may be at times during the class, I won't deny you may feel like you're struggling with it, but I think by the end, my experience has been that everybody kind of gets it in the end. So
cool. I wanted to go back to, you mentioned in your introduction about sort of different industry applications that you're bringing in, which I think is great. And I think that's what students want to see in electives. I'm curious in terms of, so like you're laying out all these different things that you can do with spreadsheet modeling in different functional areas in different industries. Do you have any insight into like which of those functional areas and industries this kind of analysis is actually most commonly being done in? Like, have you had former students come back and tell you, this was really useful in my role as this, that sort of thing?
Yeah, definitely tons of applications within operations and within finance, I would say, are maybe the two most common areas where it is applied. Scheduling is sort of another big one. A lot of people have come back to me and needed to do sort of scheduling applications and have used a lot of the models that we cover within this class. So that would certainly be another one. So.
Cool. I'm curious too, like maybe from a broader perspective, like, we learn to do all of these really useful applications of spreadsheet modeling, but what do you think like as to how this kind of knowledge is useful more as a way of thinking? Is it all about using these exact techniques, or is it also sort of useful in like gaining a broader data literacy perspective and kind of understanding how to view these things?
I think a perspective that you do get when you go through the process of building and learning how to model is just how to think about problems and how to sort of think about what is the goal that we're trying to achieve here. What is it that we're trying to decide? And the kinds of things you need to think about when developing a model are often, even outside of the modeling world, critical things to be thinking about and learning about. And I think it does help you kind of wrap your mind around business problems and how we can deal with them. So I'd like to think that both the core class and the elective class really sort of help even beyond building the linear programming models and so on.
Sure. Yeah. Another thing I wanted to ask is, we're the data and analytics club, and one of the things that we sort of encourage students to think about is the idea that data analytics is an inherently vague term, and it's sort of an umbrella that encompasses many different things, right? And a lot of Foster's analytics electives are focused on kind of causal inference and predictive analysis through statistical modeling in R, right?
Right.
And I don't know if you consider your class an analytics class. It certainly uses spreadsheets and data, but I'm curious how you see spreadsheet modeling kind of as an analytical method fitting into this wider analytics category.
Yeah. So to me, there's sort of three main parts of analytics, which I might describe as analytics. And I think most of the data analytics electives that you refer to are sort of focused in on the predictive side of that. I think what we do in my decision modeling or spreadsheet modeling class is more towards the prescriptive side. So once you know how to sort of make predictions about what this number might be, or what the relationship between this input and this output are, very often that can then fit into a decision model that you can use to take beyond just making predictions, but actually making decisions and policy decisions on how should we be operating in the future to do things better than we are now.
Yeah, that makes sense. Finally, just zooming out a little bit, I'm curious because your class uses Excel, and I'm curious what you think about the Excel as a tool in the workplace going into the future, both for the kind of analysis that you're teaching in this class and also more generally. I feel like you sometimes encounter people who are predicting that Excel is like nearing the end of its life cycle, and it will be more common for more people to be able to do at least basic analysis using some combination of like SQL and R or Python. And then other people who say that that's sort of an exaggeration. So yeah, I'm curious what your view is of Excel as a tool, why you like it for this kind of analysis, and how you see this sort of analysis being done in professional settings as we move into the future.
I think both have a place, both moving forward. So the R SQL sort of stuff is great for doing sort of data analysis sorts of things. But certainly for decision modeling and many things, I think within business, I don't think the spreadsheet is ever going away. Putting together that, whether it's accounting spreadsheet or just a financial analysis, I don't think, for a lot of those sorts of problems, the spreadsheet is really, in my mind, the optimal tool. I think it will always have a place. I don't think it necessarily is the sort of the primary place that it has had over the last 10 and 20 years. Now it's one of, I would say, several tools that are certainly useful for doing analysis, but in my opinion, it's not going away.
Got it. Yeah, I mean, I think that's most of my questions. I'm really excited for your class. I see some NBA roster optimization modeling in my future, so I look forward to that. Is there anything you feel like we missed? Any important information that you think students should have?
Gosh, nothing I can think of right now, but I'm looking forward to it as well. I hope a lot of you take the class. I think there's a lot to be gotten out of it. Again, kind of no matter what your area of interest, I think there's an application for decision modeling and even just getting better with spreadsheets, frankly.
Yeah, actually, that is one thing you bring up that I wanted to ask about here nearing the end is like, do you think your class is useful from that perspective too, just in terms of like Excel expertise and familiarity beyond just the application of spreadsheet modeling?
Yeah, I certainly believe so. We live in the spreadsheet throughout the class. We learn some techniques that are helpful. Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I think students will definitely find that helpful as well. Well, great. Listen, thanks again for participating in this. I think this is going to be useful to people.
Thank you very much for doing this. I think this is a great idea to let us sort of tell you a little bit more about our electives. So I was happy to do it.
Excellent.